We're going to have a good time and talk some hockey. I have my longtime friend and colleague, Mick Colageo, with me today. Mick, please tell everybody where they can find your stuff.
On the 104th floor of the Haggs podcast, of the Pucks with Haggs. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like you're building a skyscraper, and we just get higher and higher. So
That's right.
I write a weekly
Building towards the heavens.
I write a Sunday column for BostonHockeyNow.com. I got a deadline coming up for the hockey news. As will be now that the dust is going to settle here. We need to do the yearbook issue, and let's see. Also have my blog Rink Wrap, which I link to on X and Facebook and places like that.
Excellent. Yes, check out Mick's stuff everywhere. Let's go through our sponsors real quick too. I should tell you, I'm your host, Joe Haggerty. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Subscribe to a premium membership. Get all of my NHL and Bruins writing sent straight directly to your inbox. I also write for the Boston Sports Journal, write columns for them. I have something up about the July 1st spending spree that the Bruins went on and my analysis of it. And we're going to get into that next. But let's also thank Prize Picks, are one of our sponsors, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. You simply pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and you watch the winnings roll right in. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's download the Prize Picks app today. Super easy to use. And use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Let's also thank our friends at Game Time. If you want Major League Baseball tickets right now, if you want Red Sox tickets, if you want to get into Fenway Park, Game Time is the place to go. Last-minute deals, flash deals, zone deals, all-in pricing, where you toggle the feature and it shows the total up front with no surprise fees on checkout. I love that feature. Once again, this is something you can take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, of course, but download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. Mick, we have not done a podcast since the July 1st open of free agency. So we got a lot to catch up on here. I will let you get the first salvo here of what you thought. Your thoughts on Nikita Zadorov, who props to the last time I had you on was right before July 1st. And the tweet of the week that I read off was Chandler Stevenson and Zadorov. So people out there were talking about it. There was word on the street was out there about Zadorov, and we did talk about him a little bit. So just talk about those guys, Max Jones, Riley Tuff, just all the people that they're bringing in. Billy Sweezy, who is a local Massachusetts guy who I know the Bruins have been interested in for a long time. He's probably going to be a P Bruin for the most part, maybe some cups of coffee in Boston, but like good to see him aboard as well. Just your thoughts about the people that came in, the people that went out in July 1st and what the Bruins did.
Don Sweeney says size was coincidental and that they wanted to get in on the forecheck, and it just so happened that these guys were bigger, the ones they happened to get.
There's no such thing as coincidences.
I'm having a hard time with that one. Zadorov, if the Bruins are right about him in that they assert that his game has matured these last couple of years, that he is much more selective with his aggression, that he doesn't always have to say, hey, remember who I am, and wind up in the penalty box, with reckless kind of play, then his assets, which are size and meanness, become extremely valuable. And they also say that he's, pretty good at moving the puck. So, and I think that Donnie gave it away a little bit and talking about him playing with Charlie McAvoy and what that's going to do for McAvoy's game, and then backed off quickly to make sure that the people understand that the coaching staff gets the last say in this. And but clearly they had this in mind. And this is something that drum I was banging on all year long. McAvoy went through too many defense partners. I wanted it to be somebody physical. I didn't expect it to be this behemoth, but I guess I'm kind of psyched and I'm a little surprised. I really thought that they would go into the season with Lowry in that position, backing up with Wotherspoon and maybe backfill with depth. and then decide during the season if we'll rise up to it, which makes me almost not trust it and start thinking that, hey, maybe this isn't just fortification and we want a veteran top four that's impervious and physical and, all that stuff. Maybe they're reevaluating Lindholm here because there's no way that after low-rise playoff performance that they're thinking that this guy's just going to be buried in a third pairing situation with a little power play. I don't see it.
I mean, I don't think, but they're going to play him. Even if he's third line, he's going to play a lot. And with the power play, he's going to be 18 to 20 minutes. Like, they're not going to bury him. He's going to play a lot. I just think they were a short, dirty, mean, and nasty defenseman that intimidated the other team. Like, they didn't have that guy, and they needed that guy. This was a presence they absolutely needed on top of what they already had. This is their... Radko Gudas, when we were calling a lot during the regular season on podcasts saying they need a Radko Gudas type on the back end, this is their guy. And he's a top four defenseman. He can play, 20 minutes a night. He can move the puck adequately. But this is the polar opposite of Matt Grzelcyk and Charlie McAvoy as a defense pair.
Absolutely, this is
what you need to see.
This is what might have won him the Stanley Cup in 2019.
Right. This is what you had to see in that pairing. I just don't think using him as the sort of defensive stopper, the guy that had to be where the buck stopped on that pairing, and the other guy was the puck mover going up on the ice. I think it was just never going to be a good match for McAvoy. He needs a guy like Zadorov playing stay at home, really being the intimidator around the net, and it allows McAvoy to pick his spots more with the big hits and the physical play and the stuff that he's doing. And it's going to keep him from wearing down like we've seen happen to him when he's trying to do everything and be everything for everybody.
He's going to be harder to target, too.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, there's a bunch of players that are going to be harder to target now with a player like that. Like, what I thought was funny was it seemed like, people were, bitching about Zadorov and specifically, the money that you gave him in the term. And then Tony Maz tweeted out 6 minutes of his greatest hits where he was absolutely burying people with hits on a 6 minute long video on Twitter. And all of a sudden you saw people start getting excited. It's like, do these people not know who Zadorov was? Do they not understand? Are they so casual a hockey fan that you didn't know what you were getting as soon as you saw that name being signed? Everybody in the league knows his deal. He's 6'6", 250, 260 pounds. He is absolutely a mean SOB that is looking for, opportunities to step up and greenlight somebody and try to hit them through the boards. And he uses that size and strength. He intimidates people. He makes them afraid to take the puck into the zone with speed and not have their head up because he's coming. And if he sees a straight line where an opportunity where he can go blow you up, he's going to do it.
And you get that on both sides of the ice.
Absolutely. And to your point, he definitely needs to pick his spots with that and not run out of position trying to make hits, to open things up for other people. And I think, that's something Sweeney was alluding to when he was talking about he's experienced more now and he knows when to pick his spots to do that. And he's not going to turn it into opportunities for the other team to score because he's running out of position. But I just think if you're going to win the cup, you needed somebody like that on the back end, an absolute just, heavy hitter, mean guy there that was going to make you pay a price to get to the net and be around the front of the net. And you can be sure that Zadorov is going to be in Kachuk's kitchen when they play the Florida Panthers in the playoffs. And he's going to be in Sam Bennett's kitchen and he's going to be making them hurt if they try to get around the net and mess with the goalie. And, that's what you needed. And so I love that signing. Let's also thank Game Time. Your best place to get Red Sox tickets at Fenway this summer. And actually they're winning some games. So you probably do want to get Red Sox tickets at Fenway Summer. Although, for me, I might use Game Time I saw yesterday that Journey and Def Leppard and Heart are going to be playing at Fenway Park in August. So I may use Game Time to go see that threesome because I went and I saw Poison, Motley Crue, Def Leppard, and Joan Jett last year at Fenway, or it was 2 years ago. Wow. I can't remember. That was one of the all-time great concerts. The Def Leppard was unbelievable. I would definitely go I mowed a lot of lawns in middle school with a Walkman playing Def Leppard in my ears, Evan, back in the day. A young Joe Haggerty was like 12, 11 years old. Game Time is a great place to get tickets for concerts, baseball, all that stuff right now. Seat views, you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Zone deals, you save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. This is just good stuff, so take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account, download the app, and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And I think Elias Lindholm, I'm not as wild about in general. But from what they had, from what they had to choose from, he was the best option. And I think he was the closest option to what they really wanted with another Patrice Bergeron-like presence. I don't think he's Patrice Bergeron. I think, I'm going to have to see him really produce offensively and really be the great two-way player that, I know that he is in Boston in the situation here before I'm fully invested for, $7.5 million, $7.75 million, almost $8 for a long-term contract. But I think, that's the guy that they wanted. That's the guy that they wanted for a couple of years. That's the guy they believe is going to be the 200-foot two-way defenseman that can win faceoffs, kill penalties, be the bumper guy on the power play. And maybe they're right that you put him with Pastrnak and Pavel Zacha, and it's like him with Gaudreau and Tkachuk a couple of years ago, and you all of a sudden see him putting up big offensive numbers and really blossoming and flourishing offensively when he's with high-end talent on either side of him. And that's the hope anyway. But adding those two, I love Max Jones. That's the kind of guy who he was billed as a Tom Wilson, Milan Lucic type when he was drafted by the Ducks in the first round. Obviously, offensively, you're not seeing a ton out of him. But I think he's a guy that's willing to throw big hits. He's another one that's willing to play dirty, mean, and nasty and play angry and really hammer people on the forecheck. And I think in general, to what you started off with, Mick, size does matter for the Bruins now, and they understand it. And they know that in order to win in the playoffs, you need big, strong, physical dudes that are going to put a hurting on the other team. And be able to get there on time and really make them pay. And you have to win that battle of size, strength, heaviness, physicality in the playoffs, or you're not going to win series, especially against teams like the Florida Panthers. So I like the signings and I like the draft, frankly, where everybody they drafted was over 6'3". They're starting to, I think, realize that you can't survive in the playoffs. You just can't with, a 5'8", 175 pound defenseman, as much as I love Matt Grzelcyk. You can't have that. You need tall trees and huge dudes on the back end if you want to win in the playoffs.
There is a subtle aspect to this size advantage, particularly in Zadorov's case, where if you dial back to when the New Jersey Devils were kind of setting the blueprint for the Florida Panthers, they're the team that a lot of people thought were going to be the crackdown target of the NHL when they started talking about interference around 1995. They weren't the team they went after. The team they went after were the Bruins. And when Brian Burke, during that 95 Cup final, was asked by yours truly about the New Jersey Devils and how they play the game and how they're away from the puck and the way they use their bodies, he said, no, they're playing beautiful hockey. That's not what we're talking about. What I'm trying to stop is Donnie Sweeney from running 80 feet across the ice to run interference on guys trying to hit Ray Bourque. And I'm thinking wow, okay, this kind of caught me off guard. So I think what the point of that right now for me, the way it's resonating is it's a whole lot easier for a guy like Nikita Zadorov to subtly execute interference on a forecheck than it is for a guy like Matt Grzelcyk. Mm-hmm. Because as great a skater as Grizz is, he has to relocate his body entirely and noticeably in order to run any kind of interference. Whereas Zadorov, all he has to do is take one of his strides subtly in a different direction, And next thing you know,
and it's like a battleship coming your way that you got to get out of the way of.
There it is. And so suddenly the guy's going to have to take a longer route to get around that mountain in order to get at McAvoy when he's fetching pucks. This is going to help Charlie McAvoy immensely. It's going to free him up. I feel like he's been battling from behind an 8-ball here, and now the Bruins are going to plop their own 8-ball on the ice and say, come get him. And I just think that this is I don't think it's even known yet what the dimensions at which this is going to help the Bruins.
I agree. I was like, as soon as you started hearing Zadorov's name, I was much more enthused from a hockey perspective, watching him for the next 5 years, 6 years, than Brady Shea. And Brady Shea, I'm sure, is a perfectly fine player. But I think Zadorov is the kind of guy that comes in and I think brings a huge impact to this team,
no pun intended,
the back end, to the way that they're going to play. And, when you start talking about, too, Max Jones and Mark Kostelic as your fourth line, two guys on your fourth line most likely, you're talking about two very physical players, two good-sized players that are going to throw the body around. And I think it really changes the dimension of how that fourth line is going to play as well. And the way you can use it as a tool and as a weapon to really pound other teams and, really up the ante of the way you're trying to play and what you're doing. I just like what they've done. I think, obviously, I think the one caveat to all of this, Mick, is that they're one top 6 winger short right now.
Yeah, that's
when
fair.
You look at the roster, like with Jake DeBrusk gone, and, it's really funny, right, that the Bruins signed a bunch of Vancouver Canucks free agents, and the Vancouver Canucks signed a bunch of Bruins free agents.
It's almost like a blockbuster trade.
It really was. Matt Grzelcyk, Danton Heinen, Jake DeBrusk,
Derek Forbort.
And Derek Forbort all going out to Vancouver. And, of course, Matt Grzelcyk signed a 1-year deal with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Mike Sullivan making sure he's taking care of one of his new guys there in Pittsburgh. And I think he'll be a good fit there with the Penguins. But, the only thing that you look at this on its face and say they're a little short is, perhaps goal scoring offensively with Jake DeBrusk moving on, and he was a legit, top 6, speed skill guy and finishing ability. And now they're going to try to, maybe use Morgan Geekie there, maybe use Trent Frederick there, give Fabian Lysell a look, give Merkelov a look. It feels like it's going to be a lot of committee playing with Coyle and Marchand on the right side, and they're going to take a look at a lot of different people with the expectation that they're probably going to have to trade for a player to fill that spot at the deadline, and that will be what they're looking for. And you just have to wonder if they're going to have enough offense to truly operate and be functional during the regular season, when we all saw that goal scoring was kind of an issue in the playoffs, 2.38 goals per game. And now they've subtracted one of their better offensive.
I don't look at that from the outside in as much as I do from the inside out, and look at the hockey being played and how much time did they spend in their own end in that series. How much time won't they this year, the way they're built? And the result of that, I think there'll be a trickle-down effect into offense because of zone time, pressure. I feel like this is more of a Harry Sinden team now, straight down the middle. Lindholm fortifies a situation where you have a pure center iceman who is really mastering his craft in all 3 zones. He's one of the best players on the ice, no matter which team has the puck and no matter where it is. And having a player like that who gives them a second guy to roll, or a first, depending on how you're doing your lines. And I'm with everybody else on the assumptions here that Lindholm, Coyle, Poitras, and whoever centers, Kastelic or Beecher, and then you have, and you're rolling that way. And Poitras is your developing player there. He's the only developing player there now. Last year, you played the whole season with 2 developing players in those positions. Now Zacha goes back to wing. He'll slot in when situations call for it. Somebody's out of the lineup injured. There may be a lot of improvisation going on, and that's what Sweeney loves to have, players who can do both. So kicking centers over to wing.
he kind of plays wing like center anyway. When he plays wing, when he plays on the wing, he kind of plays it like a center, and he's always going to be a defensively responsible kind of 200-foot kind of guy. Zaka, that's part of his his DNA.
So yeah, and because he, it was his first year as an NHL playing that position on a good team with high expectations. It was a learning experience for him. And when we got down to the nitty gritty hockey at the end, he got kicked over the wing. He got kicked down on the third line. A lot of things happened, and you don't have Poitras because he's injured, so you don't even find out where he would have been in all of that as far as being able to hold his own. But he's going to be one more year down the pike. I understand he's on the ice, so we got a situation here that when you put Elias Lindholm on top of all of that and kick everybody down a notch. As far as matchups and everything goes, the Bruins get so much more stronger at the most critical part of the ice going down that middle. And they've only fortified their defense. Their goaltending will be there. And so in the tradition of it being a Harry Sinden team, the afterthought is your wings. And you already have incumbents, superstars, and depth becomes the issue. And so, with Zaka going over the left wing, you're saying, where's my second right winger? That's the question. And will they need to farm somebody up? Will there be opportunities? Will a guy like Lysell come in and show something in a positive environment? There's a lot of things that could happen along the way here. They're willing to find that stuff out in process. Yep. And I'm glad that they're finding out that rather than finding out D, rather than finding out center, rather than finding out a goalie. I feel like this is so much. Give me wing any day long to be my X factor any day. So this is a better hockey team.
No, I agree. Definitely better. I think better after the trade deadline, or after the draft, and better after July 1st free agency for sure. Better next year, and I think poised. Like, the more important thing, Mick, they're better for the playoffs. Like, that's really what they've done here, and that's like I think what they're focused on and what they understand they needed to put more of an emphasis on now than they did maybe a few years ago. Is they've got the players, they've got the offensive stars, they've got the what they need and the structure they need to get through the regular season and qualify for the playoffs.
They're going to win more faceoffs in their own end.
Yeah, but once you get there, you need certain types of players in order to be successful and be one of the final teams at the end in the postseason. And I think the way they are acquiring players and what they're valuing now tells you that I think they understand exactly what they need in order to win playoff series. And that's what a lot of these players, the money that they're spending, like that's what all of this is all about, is getting further in the postseason and finding ways to push on past the Florida Panthers, who, they took some hits. Brandon Montour's gone.
Yeah, that's a big hit. That's a big hit. He didn't have a great final, but that's a big hit.
Oh yeah, no, he's been an impact player for them, big time, and he's a roving defenseman, but like he was extremely effective.
Competitive.
Yep,
very competitive. That kid, very feisty. Feisty, very good at what he does, and he's able to be effective offensively without being lousy defensively. He's not playing one side of the puck. He's trying to, and he punches above his weight. He's a good player, and I'll miss seeing him more often. Being way out there.
Yep. But they Tarasenko, I'm assuming he will not be back. He's still unsigned. But gone from Florida. There's a list of players that they ended up not being able to retain, although they did keep, obviously, Reinhart, and they got him for a pretty good deal. They got him for a discount.
I'd call that a hometown discount.
Yeah, for sure. Now with Major League Baseball in full swing, with the Boston Red Sox actually doing okay, sort of fighting for a playoff spot. Certainly better than I think anybody would have expected going into this season. Now's a great time to use Prize Picks. If you're a Red Sox fan and if you're a baseball fan, with basketball and hockey having wrapped up, Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, you simply pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll right in. It's fun and pretty simple. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. I mean, where can you go wrong? You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. If you're looking for promotions, Prize Picks has got you covered every single week, from lowering select players' stats projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. All kinds of good stuff going on right there. Prize Picks is also available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. So if you want to get on board the Jarren Duran train with the Boston Red Sox and start loading up on his stats, Tristan Casas, when he comes back and starts hitting, all the Red Sox, if you want to get on board with them, just get it done with Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right. Dev camp. I've been there the first 3 days. I will be there tomorrow for the scrimmage. I liked what I saw, like no star players, not anybody that really jumps off the ice at you and says, this guy's a can't miss, like he's going to be a huge impact player. Like I'm talking like David Pastrnak when I saw him at Dev Camp, like just immediately flashed at you. Sagan to a degree did that too.
I felt that way about Sammy Paulson. I thought he was the second coming of Peter Forsberg. It took him a few years to become impactful and win the Stanley Cup with the Anaheim Ducks, but he wound up being a pretty damn good third-line center in the NHL.
Yeah, he did. Peter Solaric, I thought, had some good moments in development camps. I remember thinking he was pretty good.
He had some good moments with the Bruins. It was fleeting, It was a little bit like some of the K kids.
The Slovakian national teams, really. But I will say, like, Latorno, definitely raw, definitely young. At times, like there was a drill today where it was like a one-on-one battle drill. And at one point, the puck kind of went away from the net and towards the sideboards. And he was battling with Brunet. And the whistle didn't blow and he kind of gave up on the play. And Brunet kept going and cleared the puck. And I was watching like, ooh. I don't know if I like that. Like he kind of gave up on it.
I think he's in for a rude awakening. He said he wants to do 1 or 2 years at BC, and then he thinks he'll be ready for Boston. I'm like,
yeah.
Kid's gonna find.
When I heard him say that, Mick, in his press conference, I thought the same thing. I'm like, this guy has no idea what he's about to enter. Like Boston College is going to be a big learning curve for him. Like I think he probably came away much more impressed with Oscar Jelvik, his new BC teammate, after being on the ice with him for a few days at development camp. Then maybe he's got a different level of like, okay, I need to have a much higher respect
was he
for
there?
Like, Boston College. Yeah.
Jelvik there? Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, that kid's got a lot of
he's
got a lot of professional polish in this game already.
For my money, he was the best player on the ice.
I would not be surprised if you told me any different watching him play this past season.
The skill level and the speed level are very much there. Like it stands out when you watch him play. The problem with him is that, you see him go up against bigger defensemen. They staple him against the boards and he can't go anywhere. Like he's cooked. Yeah. He's not that big and strong. So like defensemen, when they get a hold of him, are going to be able to, shut him down and knock him off the puck. And there's going to be some of that. There was actually, who was it? It was the Swedish defenseman that they drafted, that Loke Johansson, in a one-on-one drill with Latorno, literally knocked Latorno off his feet and like knocked him backwards onto his back on the ice too. Like just blew him up and knocked him off the puck. So like there was a few times and a few different things I saw with Latorno, and he had some great shots. He had a couple bar down goals. Like he showed a good one-timer ability. Like he's good with his hands and shooting the puck. Like somebody was trying to tell me they didn't think the Tage Thompson comparison was good for Latorno because he's not that great a shooter. I thought he was very good shooting the puck. I thought that was probably the best attribute that he had. And you could see him, like he knows how to use his body, like 6'7". He understands like
Shielding the puck,
shielding. Yeah, shielding the puck, getting his butt into somebody, and really like getting them on his back. Like he's good at doing all that stuff, and he understands like the way he should play. But I just think I saw some things, and I'm like, man, he's far away. Like he's got some things where he needs to figure it out and turn it up a notch intensity wise, and realize that there's like, he needs to gain in a lot of areas because that. Guys, now these a first round pick. Guys are going to be targeting him, and I think he needs to realize.
To Don
that.
Sweeney's credit, he was very clear that Hockey East will be a huge leap, quote unquote, for Letourneau, and I think what that does is it highlights a philosophy, and that's how the Bruins use their late round picks. If you're gonna try to say you made an Allmark trade, you got a first round pick, albeit 25, and you have two ways you can go. You can pick what you consider a consensus surefire NHLer who will play in a lower role, who won't be as skilled a player and is able to impact the game at the dimensions that Letourneau could potentially impact it. Or you can do what the Bruins did, and I think they did this with all their picks. They tried to identify guys who had the potential to be as good as the people who are picked in the more favorable areas of those rounds, but for some reason, different in every guy's case, did not play in the top competitive league platform, whatever you want to call it, in Europe or in Canada or the U.S. for any of these guys, like the elites in that round. So like Letourneau didn't play junior A. His dream growing up was to play in the AHL. He didn't get to do it. He decided this isn't going to work for me because of where he got drafted for the OHL. So instead he decides he's going to go to college. Now, I think Sweeney at one point said USHL would have been perfect. I don't remember why they decided that wasn't the case. I don't know if they did overlooked him there too. I didn't get that part of it. But the bottom line is that this kid is greener from experience. So every new thing he does requires another year probably of adjustment. He didn't say year. I'm saying that this is going to require more processing, more. But in the end, he might be as good as the guys that got picked way ahead of him, because they had been doing it at these showcase levels. So that's the gamble. That's the gamble. That's the philosophy.
Some of his raw tools and raw skills may end up being higher upside than some of these.
Than somebody who we know for sure would have been a really good fourth defenseman in the NHL.
Well, I mean, no, this is but in the Bruins in the past have gone the other way too, and I credited them for kind of swinging for the fences with Letourneau because I think it was the right thing to do with a late first round pick. But like going back, and I don't know if we talked about this or not, but going back to when they selected Trent Frederick with that late first round pick, and was like 2016, I think that's when they could have had Alex DeBrincat.
Yeah.
And, that was a guy that was, having 60 goal seasons in the OHL, DeBrincat. And that would have been the home run swing. That would have been like, we're going to go with the small, undersized offensive dynamo guy that's just like super producing in the OHL. And instead, at the time when they selected Frederick, Keith Gretzky even mentioned it at the time that he was projecting to be a third line center at the NHL level.
Yeah.
Like
that's what they were looking at. Yeah.
Big physical third line center. So that was
which is pretty much what he is, even though they like him better at wing on this team.
He was exactly right. Gretzky was exactly right with his projection. And I think, that was an instance of playing it safe with a guy is going to be in the NHL, but be a lower sort of like trajectory player, where versus swinging for the fences with a guy that could really be an impact player for you offensively. Exactly. Exactly. But that's part of the like swinging for the fences is you either strike out or you hit a home run.
So the Allmark trade is really going to be decided by Dean Letourneau.
Probably, yeah. And it'll be fun to watch him at BC and see how he develops. But I came away even more after watching him the last 3 days thinking he's going to play down lower in the lineup for BC this first year because he's going there now. He was supposed to go there in 2 years, but because Will Smith signed with the San Jose Sharks, that opened up a spot for Letourneau to go to BC next
Yeah.
year. So he's even moving that up a year to go to BC.
Was that
initially gonna be 2
related to
years.
the decision to not go to Northeastern and go to BC? Because he had committed at Northeastern prior to.
Well, I think the thing with Northeastern changed because I think they lost. I don't know what happened in Northeastern, but it seemed like a lot of players left there. I don't know what the deal was there, but it seemed like a lot of players transferred.
I can't play in Boston Arena. I'm not going.
Well, maybe after Devin Levi leaves, I don't feel like playing there anymore. Who knows? Who knows what that?
Who knows?
But
Bruce Crowder.
I think I think so. I think after watching Letourneau the last few days, he's probably going to play lower in the lineup among the forwards there. He's probably not going to have a huge offensive season. There may be nights where he doesn't even play. And, I think that it's going to be like sort of modest returns and building as the year goes on. And
did you get any kind of a Joe Thornton?
It would not be wise.
Did you get any?
It would not be wise for Bruins fans to go in with these like sky high expectations for Dean Letourneau at BC. That's bottom line. That's basically what I'm saying is temper your expectations a little bit this first year. That I think it's going to be a work in progress, and he's going to get better as the year goes along because I think this is a huge step up in competition. And you could see, over these last few days, especially today, because they were doing a lot more sort of 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3 stuff. You could see that there's some development that needs to happen, and he's very raw compared to a guy like Jelvik, who's been around the block, compared to guys like Riley Duran, who's going to be an AHL player this year and is a pro at this point. Like you could see he's a lot further back in his development than those kind of guys.
I guess what I'm wondering is like I was asked in 1997, is Joe Thornton a bust? Because you get you get a few months into that season, and it looked like a kid who's woefully overmatched, but at the same time you can see that it's there, and you're just gonna need some time to get up to it. And then it wound up coming along faster than by the end of his sophomore season, he was right behind Allison. So so really. I'm wondering if it's kind of like a poor man's Joe Thornton situation where you got a guy here who you can see the makings of a really good pro, even though this is going to take some time because of where he's at.
And I was talking to an Italian evaluator today at development camp, and he was basically telling me he was telling me that Tage Thompson isn't really a great comp for Letourneau. He actually said Jumbo was more similar to like the way Letourneau plays, his approach to the game, like all that.
So he's not going to shoot.
He's more that. Yeah. He showed a good shot today though, but like in general, he's more of a playmaker and a guy that's going to, set other people up and maybe he's got a little bit of passivity to his game too.
I hope it doesn't mean he's going to carry the perimeter. Like always choose the perimeter and like look. I mean, Joe Thornton could thread a needle from 200 feet, but I think that incredible natural ability, I think, sort of satisfied him and kind of like when he'd come into the attacking zone and see everybody pack in the middle, he wouldn't go bull ganging through like Nathan McKinnon. He'd kind of carry around to the outside and hovercraft and look around and keep holding on to it and waiting for his chance to move it to the middle to somebody else who's inside. Certainly. And instead of getting it there himself, which was always a bit of a tease because it was torturous watching him knowing that he had the power in his stride to do that, and he hardly ever did it.
Yep. Yeah, he was waiting for Glenn Murray to fill up the slot and get in there.
Yeah, right. And Knuble. Yeah.
Yep. Matt Poitras, I think you mentioned it. Like he's been on the ice every day, no restrictions. We talked to him a couple days ago, and he said that he's added 8 or 9 pounds to his frame since he had the shoulder surgery. So, and he spoke about like understanding that he needs to be physically bigger and stronger to handle the NHL, the day-to-day, to win more one-on-one battles, just to have the strength and endurance you need to be an effective player at the NHL level. And he also talked about maybe not quite being so fearless in certain situations to put himself in peril or
that's true.
He get injured.
He wanted to,
in certain situations.
He did play. He did play with courage last year, and he hung on. He hung on to pucks, and he took some brutal hits because of it. And so maybe refining his craft in that regard. The big thing I think with him is I think he's one of those kids who's a decent skater, but doesn't really have that big.
Yes.
He doesn't really have.
Doesn't have
He
a
doesn't have
burst.
great explosion in his stride.
Nope.
And if he can gain that, I don't care if it takes him 7 years. He's going to be a hell of a player because everything about the way he plays the game is really exciting to me.
I agree. He does not have separation speed. He doesn't have that like burst to separate himself from other people, especially at the NHL level. And it was apparent last year. And like I'm gonna cut him all kinds of slack and grade him on a curve because like I'm sure Rust is there coming back from surgery. This is really probably the first thing he's doing on the ice, working out in this kind of a format at this level since undergoing the surgery. But like watching him on the ice, like you would expect somebody that's played in the NHL that like has the cachet that he has. And frankly, the expectations that they're talking about him for next year, you would expect him to be a more dominant player in a development camp setting where some of these guys are 17, 18-year-old kids. Some of these guys
he's feeling his way in.
Yes. I can
understand.
He looked like a player that wasn't operating with a whole lot of confidence. Like wasn't operating with, put it this way, he looked like a player that was not operating with the same level of confidence he had last year at development camp.
A toe in the water.
The entire experience beginning to end. And I think at the end of his run with the Bruins last year, he was kind of playing like that too. I think the confidence had ebbed quite a bit by the end point before he got hurt. Understandably so. But like, I just hope you start to see that sort of like really aggressive playmaking, creative, like all the stuff he was doing with the puck come back and be much more noticeable because it just was not there for my money too much this week in watching him play with, I think, people that he should be dominating at this point. Like somebody like Poitras, you would hope comes in and just is a really dominant player and very noticeable in that setting against the competition that he was against. And I just didn't
he's
see
coming off surgery against a bunch of guys who are trying to prove something.
Yep.
So I think in his case, he's probably just really trying to like feel his way back in and gain the confidence that comes with how you feel at each step that you take forward. Really would like to see him work on his stride. I feel like his straightaway speed could really change if he could get some mechanical help with his stride. I do feel like he's got a bit of a abbreviated push, and some guys don't really get that knee out in front of their body that far when they're skating. Other guys really do, and some of them have great coordination when they do it, and some don't. So, but when you see the way Johnny Beecher can motor up and down the, and I know he's a bigger body, he's a longer guy.
Yep.
So that's obviously part of it. But I do think that I've seen smaller guys. I mean, look at Marchand. Brad Marchand, before his double labrum, even getting into his 30s, that guy could still give you one push and change his area code. And Ray Bourque kind of skater, Sidney Crosby kind of skater. I think that Poitras' mechanics need improvement, and I wouldn't mind seeing him with a swing doctor. I know they have a skating coach. These guys, whenever they talk about it, they always talk about refinement and edges and little things that economize movement and quicker step, and you're already off your way in the other direction, all that stuff. And that's all wonderful. I think in his case, it's more basic.
Yeah, and maybe that plays into too. I think the other part of it with him, judging by what we saw last year, is I think shift to shift, he didn't always have the level of energy that you need to have too. Like, I don't know if it was conditioning. I don't know what the deal was. I don't know if it was because at times he was taking shifts that were too long. But you could see that at times he just didn't have enough in the tank shift to shift when he was out there as well. And maybe part of that's just his age.
Do you remember Eric Nicholas? Okay.
Yes.
Eric Nicholas from the Cape. Really good player. Wicked upper body strength. Kind of skinny in the legs. He first 30 seconds of every shift, he was a freaking dynamo. And then everybody out there be out there for another 30 seconds, and he would tail off.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably always difficult for him because of his body type, and to sustain is tough. I mean, that's what makes Connor McDavid so unreal. That the biggest, most spectacular play he made in the whole Stanley Cup final playoffs, arguably, was at the end of this gigantic shift. So it's just it is funny that but hopefully Poitras can find his way there. Development never stops for intelligent players. Keep on getting better their whole career.
And some of that, Mick, probably goes back to what you're talking about with skating too, though. Like some guys probably have to work harder skating wise to keep the pace going than other guys do. That it's more of an effortless stride, or what I mean.
Absolutely.
Like I think that probably factors into sometimes when you see people losing steam at the end of a normal shift when other guys are able to go for another like 30 seconds.
Yeah, some guys just they just get so much out of every ounce of their energy with their skate blades. I mean, Paul Coffey had this funny thing where his skates are almost like goalie skates. Rather than touching down for that 2.5 inches on the ice, his were touching down for several inches. And as a result, turning for him was trickier. But because he had such a loping stride, he wasn't as big as Serge Savard, but he skated like Serge Savard. Big, heavy strides that weren't that many of them. But he could just I'm thinking, why the heck is he beating the Blackhawks forecheck? He's just going on the outside, and he's just he's killing them. And they're not able to stay with him. It's because he had these, he's using speed skater skates out there because he was good enough to control them. And because of that, he put science on his side because he had the talent to master it. Everything, it's funny little things. Jeremy Roenick once told me that his skates, if you take the boot of his skate, say this is the boot of his skate, all right, the blade you expect to be going straight up down the middle. His were actually angled so that,
really?
Yes, he had them repositioned so that they were aiming out. So he could run straight forward and have the skates already doing what you try to do, and you stride, you kind of push a little to the outside, you flare it out, and you push off. In his case, it was he could go straight forward and have it be like this. And like what do they call it? Duck-toed? It's so, so he's kind of duck-footed skate positioning. Blade rocker positioning. It was really strange, but I remember when it came up on the lockout year, and he was trying to find a guy who knew how to do his skates right. Yeah, it was really strange, but I never knew that about him. But I always thought he was pretty dynamic out there.
Absolutely. Any thoughts about anything else from July 1 from free agency? Whether it was the Lightning,
Yeah, it wasn't really funny. They're clearing all the space. Everybody thought they were going to do it to save Stamkos.
Oh, man,
it wasn't that at all.
I mean, no, my biggest takeaway is just them losing Stamkos. Obviously they got Gunsel, and he's a good player, good playoff player, and long term that probably helps him more because he's younger and he's going to be at a high level for a while. But I really feel like you lost something with you sending your captain and treating him the way you did out the door, not trying to hang on to him. I feel like Steve Stamkos is one of those players that should have been a Lightning player for life, and letting him go like that's a mistake.
I think that they're trying to revive. They're trying to give the door, trying to stir that drink a little bit and say, hey, there's no reason that we should be all done here. And they feel like there's more to give with that nucleus. They think that so that's their attempt to retool it. We'll see what happens.
It is, but I think players around the league see you do something like that with Stamkos and say, I guess I know it's a cold-hearted professional league, but I think there's certain players where you're making a statement when you let them walk like that, and when you don't really make an effort to keep them. And maybe I'm sure there's two sides to it, and Stamkos probably wanted more money that they wanted to give him. Once Bergeron hit that point in his career, he was taking less money to stay and build the team around him, and he wasn't looking for that kind of a deal. So that maybe that.
He was never looking for that kind. It's amazing when you consider what they got Bergeron, Krejci, and Marchand for their entire careers. Marchand's going to be coming into the final year of his contract. He might finally be the only guy among them to get market value in any part of his career, which will be probably his last, significant contract. He wants to keep playing. So they're going to have to figure something out there. in order to keep him coming back for more. And they can't expect it to. I don't think they should treat him at that point the way Bergeron and Krejci did their last deals.
No,
they should be. Marchand should be treated like he's 29.
Yeah, and I think he will.
So,
I think the Bruins value who he is organizationally and who he is as a player and what he means to the franchise. So I don't foresee any Stamkos situations with Brad Marchand when it comes to that for sure. Mick, thank you very much. Let's also thank our sponsors real quick. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. You simply pick more or less than a 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll right in. For example, right now you could pick the Red Sox. I don't know, Jaron Duran, is that who it is? Hitting home runs, batting leadoff, all kinds of statistical stuff going on with him. That's somebody you could use right now. So download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Let's also thank Game Time. Game Time's URL is GameTime.co if you're looking for it. And right now you can get Major League Baseball tickets, Red Sox tickets at Fenway Park. The best way to get those tickets is going through Game Time. Last minute deals, save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater. Flash deals, you save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, download the account, create an account, download the app, and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today.